Hi, welcome to Culture Shock. This week I want to talk about science, and I want to give it a little bit of a drubbing. Now, I'm a big believer in science, right? My children are vaccinated. I believe they walked on the moon. I believe human beings' fingerprints are all over climate change. I'm okay with science. I think it's really, really important. But I think when it comes to people engagement, I think sometimes we can rely too heavily on it. And I think part of the reason that we do that is because we lack the confidence as people leaders to simply trust in our own instincts, trust in our own experience. As soon as there is some sort of scientific alternative to your gut instinct, it's very hard to logically explain why you've gone with the gut instinct instead of the science. And so we're stuck with things sometimes. We're stuck with some of the scientific tools, some of the scientific measurements, etc., around people engagement. And I think the challenge with it is that what it does, it leads us to dilly-dally. It leads us to drag our feet. It leads us to be too slow and not instinctive enough when it comes to driving people engagement. We see things are wrong. We see things that we can alter. And then what we do is we debate it, discuss it, study it, analyze it, do reports, do more reports, get more reports for the reports, and then work out over time, over a period of 6 months or whatever, a kind of approach which we should do, and then we structure it. And it's just crazy. I think you're likely to get a better response, honestly, a better response, if you just consider your impacts to be like dropping a pebble in a pond of water. You drop a pebble in and these little rings sort of move out and they eventually touch everything. You drop another one in and more rings, etc., etc. In other words, the impact of dropping a pebble into the middle of a pond is that it affects all parts of the pond. Slowly, perhaps, and not necessarily perfectly, and not necessarily, in all the ways that you'd want them to, but nevertheless the impact is felt. And I think there are guidelines, there are signposts all over the place. There are things that we can do. One of them, for example, even if we just turn to the 5 pillars of an engaged organization that we discovered through the Happy Sandpit research way back in 2012, 13, and ongoing, we found these 5 pillars. And one of them, for example, is the willingness to extend trust. If you simply did this, you just went out of your way to try and find a way to empower people a little bit more, delegate a little bit more, be a little bit more of a kind of inclusive boss, be a little bit more of a consultative type boss. You might find that the impact you have starts to spread to other places. This is certainly what we've seen. Same thing goes for example, number 2, the taste for adult conversations. A lot of that's about being a learning organization, not just a teaching organization. Being an organization, being a boss, being a department, being a group of people who is interested in finding out what it already knows by querying the people within the organization. You do that, you're asking people to get involved, to share their opinions, etc. Will that have an impact on overall culture? It's likely to have an impact on proximity of leaders to employees. It's likely to have an impact on whether or not people think they're heard. It's likely to have an impact on whether or not people feel that they're trusted to have ideas. Is that going to have an impact on culture? I mean, I wouldn't bet against it. We've seen it again and again where little tiny things can have a large impact. They can start to spill over into other things. It's just natural. It's the human sort of instinct. You latch onto one thing and it leads to another. And this doesn't require science, by the way. This requires just a little bit of bravery, a little bit of courage, a little bit of instinct on your part as a people leader. That's all it really requires. And the cool thing about it, the best thing, is that you can do it now. You don't need a report to know whether or not you should sit people down and say, guys, we're about to make a change here. What do you think? What do you think we should hold on to? What do you want us not to change? That's culture, that kind of thing. And I think it's much more impactful when it's driven by instinct and care and natural human intelligence than it is when it's driven by a scientific report or a scientific analysis or some sort of structured approach that takes time and rolls out as if this is an HR project, not just a way of being. Anyway, that's my thought for this week. It's been food for thought for me as I've been dwelling on that. I hope it's food for thought for you, and I wish you a very good week.